From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm here today with my guest, Mr. Todd Jones, with his bi-weekly segment, Copywriting with Todd Jones. And today we're going to talk about creating demand. Please grab a drink, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Hey everybody, Stunning Digital Marketing is your digital concierge. We help you put the pieces together to make your marketing success. Specialties we have including WordPress design and development, WordPress security, which is one of our most popular offerings, ads, and more. So if you want to succeed in the digital world, go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and have a look at what we offer, and we'd be glad to help you. And let's jump on a call and make it happening. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I'm here with Mr. Todd Jones, and we're going to do Todd's monthly copywriting segment. How are you, Todd?
I've been pretty good, better than last week, so we're rocking and rolling now.
That's a good thing. Is it gloomy and overcast in Arkansas like the rest of the continent, or is it
not at the moment? We actually have a momentary. We have some decent, blue sky right now. The weather has dropped a little bit. I don't think we're going to get out of 60s today. Next week it's going to drop big time. We're going to have 30s in the morning and 50s and the high. So fall's finally going to arrive in Arkansas next week. For some people it may be winter, but it's really more of a fall type weather. But anyway, so we'll have our share of rain between now and Wednesday, I think. Again, so we had nothing in October, and in November we've gotten hit like every
tons,
2-3 times a week. Yeah.
Today we thought we'd talk about demand and how demand in copywriting. So where did you want to start with that?
Well, so I was thinking about this, and it kind of came up in it, and I'm going to tell a story in just a minute, which will kind of illustrate what I'm thinking about. But if you and I tend to spend plenty of time on LinkedIn, and there's a job title that has come up in recent years called demand generation or something like that.
Yep.
And I thought about this actually, maybe even earlier this year. Like, this is kind of a hot take. You don't really generate demand. You just don't. I mean, I thought about this. You don't. This is my hot take for the year, I guess. You don't generate demand. Can you do some things to maybe increase demand? Maybe. Really what you're doing is increasing awareness of the problem, or you're increasing awareness of your business, but you don't really increase demand. Demand is either there or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at that. It's kind of a hot take. I realize that. Some people may disagree with me. Usually it's people in the tech and B2B world that would disagree with that. They build up these job titles around creating demand and so forth.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you a story in just a minute, but to illustrate something, I know you have a jewelry store owner. This time of year,
I was there yesterday.
Yeah. This time of year, I would imagine demand is up just a little bit as people are getting ready for the holiday shopping. People will buy nice presents for their significant others in most cases, and they will usually go. One of the things they will do is really anybody sells almost anything this time of year. Demand is up, right? Because we have the whole we call it Black Friday. It's because everybody knows that businesses typically will get out of the red and into the black during this time of year as people are shopping for the holidays, end of the year gifts, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But he also, demand will come and go during the year for him, I'm sure, right? You have Valentine's Day, so there's a higher peak of demand. The spring will typically
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Mother's
Yes,
Day.
Exactly. Now you can't really plan when somebody's going to get engaged and, like there's no engagement time of the year, right? You know, like, okay, between May and July, people are going to
Yeah.
get, and that may happen. People are going to get a shop for weddings, that kind of stuff. So demand kind of fluctuates in a business like that. But most businesses, you either have the demand or you don't. Um, that's my opinion. So where copywriting comes into it is it facilitates the demand that's already there. I don't think you can increase if somebody's not interested. Talk about taking a product to market, right?
Hmm.
And you test it. That, you know, I was around the startup world long enough to learn about MVP, which doesn't mean most valuable player or a professional wrestler that exists in AEW. It means minimum viable product. So what
Yeah.
the tech entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general do is they would come up with a minimum viable product and they would take it to market to see how it works. If it works, that means people are buying, and that means there's a demand for it. A lot of times we come up with a product that we think should have a demand, but nobody wants it. Nobody buys it. It
Hmm.
happens all the time. Um, then you
But, but
have,
but but let's stop there. But sometimes that's due to marketing. So as well,
yeah.
and I'll give you an example of that. Let's go into the old VHS tapes. What are those? The younger
Hmm.
generation would say. And there were two formats. There was the VHS Consortium, and
Uh-huh.
then there was the Sony Betamax format.
Uh-huh.
So what
Yeah.
I would argue is, having had both those machines in my younger day, the Sony Betamax format was way superior from a picture quality than from the VHS. Everybody knew that. There was two things that didn't bent up the demand on the Sony side. One, Sony didn't market the product very well. Two, um, besides marketing, it was more expensive. So when you factor in the price and the marketing, the lack of the demand was there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it goes back to you know, and my friend Liam on LinkedIn basically reminded me of the 4 Ps of
Mhm.
marketing principles that people tend to forget about in this time of this era of marketing. People tend to forget about it, but product, price, place, and promotion. You
Yep.
do have to have it all to come together, right? So I know that story very well. The Betamax didn't take off. Maybe there wasn't enough players out there. Maybe it costs a little bit more expensive.
It
They
was
lost
more.
out on pricing.
So one of
Um,
the knocks on Sony as a corporation, and to this day, I refuse to buy a Sony product. Excuse me. And I've had several. I had a Sony VCR that was miles ahead of its time in the days of VCR. And this was actually a VHS VCR, where it had jacks on the front of it. So when you plugged in a camcorder in their device, you didn't have to go behind the cabinet and run the cables. You just plugged in the front. The
Smart.
only problem with this VCR was it was great when it worked, but God, if something broke, cost of
Mm,
fixing it was like buying a new one. And
mm,
so
mm,
that was one of the knocks with Sony was their products was more expensive. Now they were
mhm,
first to market in many things. They were the first one with a portable CD player, the Discman.
mhm,
They were first ones to market with a portable Walkman. If you
mhm.
remember those, the big
I
yellow,
do. Yeah.
I had a big yellow sports one. But in the last, I would say 10 or 12 years, Sony has not been an innovator. The PlayStation, the video game, is not an innovator. Microsoft and Nintendo are miles ahead of them. In the TV industry, they're not an innovator. Companies like Vizio and TCL, two-tier companies, are now innovators.
Mhm.
And they, I think, have lost their innovation touch, personally.
So let me use that right there. The fact that they didn't innovate, they stopped innovating as a segue to my next example, which is really kind of the opposite of what I was talking about. So I'm not, my hot take is not an exclusive, like this is the only, there are exceptions to the rule. I'm going to use it. I don't really have too many of their products, but Apple, right? Okay.
Yep,
Um, when they came out with the iPhone, there was nothing like that on the market. Apple
agreed.
has made a career in the last 30 years of creating and producing and putting something out that didn't exist and that people didn't know they want until they saw it.
Yep.
So, and they use there's the old analogy, like, if Henry Ford would have said, asked the customer what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse. Instead, he made the Model T car.
Yep.
That's kind of the thing that Apple went. So it's not to say that you can't put something out that the client doesn't know they want, and then but there was demand. Once they saw how it went, they did a good job of marketing and advertising. They had some really good commercials back in the day. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but when it comes, I think we can underestimate demand way too much sometimes. We just think,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to put out a superior product. Well, that doesn't all, you need more than that. And then, but I think sometimes when people get a taste of the product, then they like, okay, there's another story I just
Well,
thought of in my
hang on,
head.
hang on a sec, Todd. I want to go back to Apple for a sec because what Apple's done, interesting enough, they're not usually the first to market. So I'll give you an example of that. The
Mhm.
iPod. Do people realize that Creative Labs, which is an old sound card company, was the first to market with the MP3 player, not the iPod? With the Apple Watch, they realized that Fitbit was first to
Oh yeah,
market
Fitbit,
with
yeah.
a smartwatch. Do they realize that in the tablet game, Apple was not the first to market, but the iPad is the most popular tablet out there.
Hmm.
Even I, a Windows user, have an iPad.
Hmm.
So what I
Hmm.
would argue is what Apple does really well is
They market.
they market, but they create raging fans. I
Yes.
know people that every time a new iPhone comes out every year, go and upgrade their iPhone and sell their old one. It's
Yes,
absurd.
yes.
And
They have
every
created super fans. They have created super fans.
no
Shout out
question.
to my friend Brittany Hodak, who wrote a book called Super Fans.
Yep.
Highly recommend you get it for your Christmas list this year. But she would talk about that kind of thing. But now I think about the what's the tumbler that got real hot last year about this time? Stanley,
Yes.
The Stanley tumbler. Okay, how did it get hot? Nobody could have predicted this, Rob. The story goes that somebody had the car caught on fire and it burnt, and it
Mhm.
was hauled to the place where you take cars, and they burned it out. They went back to see if they could retrieve anything, and there in the middle in their console was a Stanley mug still standing, and I still in the Stanley mug. That story got viral on social
Yep.
media, and it created a demand. So you can't go out and just generate demand, I don't think, but demand can be created in certain things. Now, copywriting helps facilitate that. But I wanted to tell you another story. This is where I began to think about this a little bit closer. I have a friend lives in Southeast Missouri. um About a year ago, I was up there visiting him. He told me he has a friend who's a VP at a bank in the area, and he told this story about this guy who sold dirt and made millions of dollars. Okay,
Mhm.
actually hundreds of millions of dollars. So what happened was this guy who was kind of a patriarch of the family passed away, left this
Yep.
land to his kids. His kids were like trying to decide what to do with this land, and one of the sons wanted to sell it and buy a hunting lodge in southern Illinois because that's what it was his passion to run this hunting lodge, which is a big thing in the South. People in other parts of the country may not understand that we got hunting lodges in Arkansas. But anyway, the Midwest and the South, hunting lodges is not a bit, not a, it's a popular thing. Anyway, that's what they wanted to do. And one of the brothers said he had a business background, maybe even a business degree. He said, hold on a second. If you guys can be just patient for a few years, I'll make sure you get that hunting lodge. But we'll
Mhm.
do it and we'll have money in the bank when we do it. We won't be having to take out a loan or anything. Okay. So he started, they went down there and got a loan from the bank. Um, and they got some heavy equipment and they started selling the dirt. The dirt was, fertile, rich dirt that was good for construction projects. So people from all over southern, eastern Missouri would come in, maybe Illinois, and buying that dirt by the truckloads and taking it back. They had the machine to dig it for them, and they paid the loan back. And
Yep.
things were going really well, and they kept selling this dirt, and they got to a point, when you start peeling away layers of land, you get down to another layer, and that layer was a nice bedrock of rock. good rock that could be used for foundations. And but to cut it out, they had to get a tool out of Europe, very expensive. So went back to the bank, got a loan. They'd already paid off the loan, by the way, from the first equipment they bought. Went got this rock cutter from Europe, brought it in, started selling that rock. Expensive, made bukus of money, had to buy another one to do that, to keep doing it. He made hundreds of millions of dollars. They ended up building their own hunting lodge and not instead of having to buy one. This it was all about demand. There wasn't any social media posts about. I'm sure there might have been organic. There wasn't a need for social media posts. There wasn't a need for an email marketing campaign. There wasn't a need for all this fancy marketing because the demand was already there. You tell somebody what you're doing. I actually visited with a friend today in the coffee shop. Business he started, they were doing quality work. I said, what do how are people finding? He goes, right now, just referral. People are really pleased with what they're doing and they're coming to them and doing that. Now, I don't misunderstand me. I'm not on here to tell people not to market. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that sometimes we really lean into our fancy marketing stuff you and I do every day. And sometimes we forget or we underestimate the need for demand. If you don't have demand for your product or your service, for whatever reason, and that can fluctuate too, by the way, the economy can be terrible.
Could be even the
what
time
you do.
It could be the time of year, like selling bathing suits in Toronto, unless you're going away in the middle of January. It's not a good move,
Well,
Now,
there's
if you're going to the
there's a
Caribbean,
flip side to that. You can sell those at a discounted price usually and get them off the shelf. But yeah, I mean, demand fluctuates, can fluctuate, but sometimes demand just not there. Whatever the product or service is, you got to cut it loose because no amount of marketing you do will create or generate that demand. But demand is a very complex thing. It takes more than just, we've already discussed different ways that demand happens. It can happen from a viral video about a Stanley mug. It could, clearly Apple touched on something. They weren't first to market, but they did something better or whatever. We had several examples about how demand can be, but copywriting, going back to the subject at hand, is the facilitator. It is like the choir conductor, the orchestra conductor. You are putting it all in place and you're communicating the message that you have to the people who have the demand for the product or service you have. So you're saying it in a way that they understand, you're being clear. You're not really trying to manipulate them so much, although we do use things like, principles of persuasion, stuff like that. And we're going to do an episode on nostalgia one day, just nostalgia, because nostalgia is the lost principle of persuasion. That's what I call it. The loss is the one that's not mentioned by the gentleman who came up with the principles of persuasion. I think there's 7 or 8 of them. He never mentions nostalgia. When you get 50 years old, you start to realize how important nostalgia is. That's an aside. But copywriting is that thing that facilitates. And think about it. Copywriting is done on your website. It's done on flyers you put out. It's done on emails you send out. It's done on social media messages. Yep. Yes. Ebooks. People create ebooks. They create case studies, all this kind of stuff. But copywriting is the conductor for facilitating the demand and getting it to the people who need to hear about it. So yeah, that's my hot take, I guess you might say, about demand is not created, but it can be facilitated with the help of copywriting.
Yeah. Hey Todd, thanks for talking about demand. And if anybody's interested in Todd's work, go over to Copyfight and figure it out. And he's got good things, including the website Copy Framework, as well as hiring him from a consult, amongst other things. So have a great day, Todd, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you very much for listening to the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital concierge. For all your digital marketing needs, especially WordPress security, jump on over to studyingdigitalmarketing.com and let's help you put the pieces together and make your business succeed in the marketing realm. That's studyingdigitalmarketing.com. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I love you. I miss you very much. And thanks for all the inspiration over the years and your caring, your understanding, and helping me grow as an individual. Thank you, Dad. A very special thank you to Todd Jones for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show.